Do you see how this has no end? This will never lead to any collective good moving forward, ever. I'm bothered, deeply troubled by something's going on right now in just the spread of false narratives used to fuel and fire unrest in our country that's deeply disturbing and doing nothing to solve the problem. What do I mean by that? You're hearing a lot, as I said, over the past few days about the term, I've been talking about this on the show, systemic racism. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's caveat, this is going to be a tough show, but this is a show that has to be done and this has to be said. Racism is a very real thing. I think that's obvious to anyone with a brain listening. Unfortunately, there are people among us, people all around the world, who judge people by all kinds of characteristics entirely unrelated to their character, their soul, the person they are. Why they do that is really evidence of your own shallowness if you happen to be one of those people. Thankfully, I don't have many of them in my audience. It's sad. It's a scourge on our society. I mean, think about it. Approaching someone you've never met in your entire life and already having some kind of a preformed opinion about who they are, and that opinion's a negative one. Obviously, something deeply disturbing. Also, to be said and never dismissed, the country has a troubled history with race. We shouldn't run from that. We should learn from it. Jim Crow was real. Our history with slavery was real. Generations of Americans prior to us, no, I'm not blaming you. Matter of fact, there's going to be a second part of this, but generations prior to us, some Americans back then did some awful things. Some Americans fought against that and died in our Civil War. This is all obvious. Our history is very real. We shouldn't run from it. Yet there are some Americans alive today who still had to suffer through things, indecencies, moral sins upon them that a lot of us haven't. Forced to drink from a water fountain labeled colored, sit in different places in a restaurant. The indignity of that, I can't imagine. Luckily, most of you can't either. I'm not here to run from that, and no one else should either. How we treat decent human beings who did nothing wrong because of the melanin component of their skin, and how some have in the past, was a stain on that generation of people who engaged in that behavior. And it should always be taught in history. But ladies and gentlemen, this institutional systemic racism thing, in other words, this system is race. Ladies and gentlemen, a system is you understand what they're doing here? They're trying to take away from isolated, thankfully, increasingly more isolated examples of overt racism in our society. And they're trying to impose upon you a permanent sense of guilt, even if people like you, me, Joe, Paula, and others will fight against this racism till the day we die for obvious reasons, moral and ethical. They're trying to impose upon you a permanent sense of guilt as if you're the problem. They're doing this because they want political power, ladies and gentlemen. They are not doing this because they believe every white American out there should be guilty because you have some form of systemic institutional racism you can't get rid of. That's not what they actually believe. Believe me, that's not what they believe. They're doing this to fuel the fires, to pit us against each other, to walk in there as politicians and fake political demigods and say, look, I'm going to be the one to save you from those evil people over there, whatever that group may be, the corporatists, white America, the patriarchs. This is what they do. They leverage this for political power. You have to stop. This has to be cut off now. Why am I bringing this up in relationship to the opening of the show? Because I'm seeing something developing on social media. I really can't believe. I'm not kidding when I tell you I had to look twice and check to make sure that this wasn't some kind of a farce. Remember what we're talking about here. We're not talking about individual episodes of legitimate, sad, and candidly quite grotesque racism that sadly do still happen, but are becoming less and less and less and less common as the country grows and evolves. We're talking about allegations that somehow there should be some imposition, again, of permanent guilt on people who've done nothing wrong because of the color of your skin. Isn't that the very definition of racism in and of itself? What do I mean by that? What am I talking about? If you go to social media and you're on Parler, or Twitter or Facebook or any Snapchat or any of these other platforms out there, you're going to see a lot of these types of photos. I took this screenshot this morning. This is real. This is from Twitter. This is from a rally for a George Floyd protest, the man killed by the police officer in that incident we all know about now, sadly. This is an actual tweet from an account, BXM. White people praying and kneeling before black people asking for forgiveness for racism. Hashtag George Floyd protest. Are you a racist? If you are, maybe you should ask for forgiveness. Maybe you should ask for forgiveness from the people you've been racist towards and from the Almighty. Not maybe. You should. But a bunch of, by the way, that picture is just one point. That's a video. I took a screenshot. There are probably 50 to 100 people who happen to be white kneeling and genuflecting before a group of black men and women at a protest, asking for free. What are you? I don't understand. I mean, what are you asking for? Are you acknowledging you're a racist? If you are, you've got some problems you need to handle. This is not isolated. These videos are all over the internet. Let me be crystal clear. If you are a hardcore racist, you have serious issues you need to handle, as you are the problem. But if you are not, and you are on the right side of this argument, fighting for real, authentic justice, deliberate, process-oriented justice in a constitutional republic, then get the hell off your knee. What the hell are you kneeling for? What are you kneel? Get up off your, what are you kneeling for? I'll kneel. I'll kneel before the Almighty and confess my many sins. I'm a sinner. I try to repent for it every day, and I pray every night, please, Father, make me a better man tomorrow than I was today. I fail a lot. Many of you do too. I'm not kneeling before any man. And you shouldn't either. If you're a racist and you've got issues, you need to get that handled stat. But if you're on the right side of right and not the wrong side of right, get up off your damn knees. What the hell are you doing? You see how this imposition of this imposed permanent guilt upon people because of the color of their skin or the lack of melanin in their skin? Do you see how this has no end? This will never lead to any collective good moving forward, ever.
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud and follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 @DBongino.